privilege to be the Chief Technologist for HP here in EMEA. In the next 20 minutes or so, I'd like to try and talk to you a little bit about why our world is changing. In fact, it already has. And while it may be a bit of a cliche for many of us, the impact it's going to have on our ability to deploy information technology solutions, how we design them, how we build them in the first place, will be radically affected over the next 2 or 3 years. You are part of a community of IT professionals that are, I guess, depends how you look at it, challenged, blessed, cursed perhaps, with being right in the middle of the biggest set of changes that you're going to see in our industry for the last 25 or 30 years. There'll be more happening in the next 2 or 3 years than you've ever seen. And I'd like to just talk about some of those things and give you a feel where I see where some of those are going. One of the things that's very clear, if we start with a bigger picture, is if you look historically, there has always been one industry that has defined the age in which we live. It has changed our culture, changed the entire way we live. If you go back far enough, it was the light manufacturing of the Industrial Revolution. It was the railways of the 18th and 19th century. It was the motor car in the early 20th century that completely changed the way our culture worked. Telecoms, arguably, in the late 20th century. Today, it's IT. IT defines the way our world is put together. It defines the way our culture works. And it will change the way we as a society live. We will do things differently from here on than we have done in the past. And I'd like to just try and get a couple of things across to you. Things have always changed in IT. I've been in this industry over 35 years, and I've always talked about change. You know, the old cliche, change is the only constant. Well, it's kind of always been true, but right now, there's far more of it than you have ever seen. And there's a little bit of an interesting test which I put together was if you look at the time it took technologies to reach that goal of 50 million users. It's a reasonable global footprint. It took radio quite a long time, nearly 40 years, to get to 50 million users. It was a fairly slow start in the early 20th century. Television only took 13 years to get to 50 million users. The internet, it's a little harder to judge, but certainly it was a lot shorter, because argument over quite when it started, but kind of the commercial internet, certainly 44 million years. Facebook, once it broke out of Harvard anyway, less than 4 years to get to 50 million users. And we're now up into the sort of more recent times. Instagram, I don't know how many of you use Instagram on your phone, 6 months to get to 50 million users. And things like Angry Birds took 35 days to get to 50 million concurrent users. It's an interesting observation if you're in this business that success in the digital age today, success in the next few years could kill your business faster than failure. Because if you actually create a real hit like Angry Birds, the other big one was Draw Something of last year that actually grew even faster than Angry Birds did. But if you get successful, you create an expectation and you don't have the ability to meet that expectation, you trash your reputation permanently. Actually, perversely, if you fail, nobody actually sees what you're trying to do, you can fail repeatedly until you get hit. But if you're going to be successful, your information technology infrastructure and how you deliver it had better work, because your reputation will be trashed fairly permanently if you don't. It's also getting much bigger. Now, we've talked about this a long time as well, but it's now getting a lot bigger. Organizations like Facebook add 300 terabytes of information every day to their organization. As a culture, we add 1 exabyte every day to the digital data that we create. It is a truism that less than 10% of all of the digital data that exists in the world today is more than 2 years old. 90% of it has been created in the last 24 months. And your organization, whichever style it is, be that public sector, be that commercial, be that an end user, you are creating more digital stuff than you have ever done. It's also getting far more complicated. Back in the old days, when I started in this industry and God was in short trousers, application profile was a simple thing. You bought in your organization half a dozen, maybe, applications that run your whole business. Something to count the numbers, something to talk to customers, something to build something probably. That was kind of about it. No longer. Organizations today have hundreds of applications, typically thousands of applications upon which they depend. Your ability to integrate that, both the scale and the complexity of it, will be radically challenged over the next few years. By the time we get to 2020, and that may sound like a long way away, but it's not. People are buying technology today that will still be core to their business in 2020. It's only 5 years away. We will have a radically different landscape in terms of what we're trying to do with our technology. And doing it in the way that we've done it in the past just won't get us there. I do want to share two little examples just to try and make my point about the fact that everything is changing. That's a toothbrush. That's a digital toothbrush. That one's actually manufactured by a French company, but Philips are about to launch theirs onto the marketplace as well. And I don't know how many of you here have school-aged children. Mine are much now older, but I've been there. That conversation you have with your kids when you leave the house in the morning, have you cleaned your teeth this morning? Yes, Dad, I have. Okay, and that's a trust relationship. Well, this toothbrush will tell you whether you have brushed your teeth or not, because it's connected to your smartphone via your wireless hub. Okay, so the conversation now becomes, I see you haven't cleaned your teeth, go back and do it again. Philips are actually going to take their version of it and connect that to a website. So the conversation with your dentist is about to change from, good afternoon, David, how's the cleaning regime going? Excellent, dentist. To, it will be in the future, I'll tell you what, why don't we sit down together at the website and look at how badly you're actually cleaning your teeth so that we can learn together and move forward. Dentistry will be fundamentally changed. Interesting question, who owns the data? You or the dentist or Philips? It's an interesting question. I couldn't find anything more prosaic or boring than this. That's a light bulb. It's a digital light bulb. Right? It is individually controllable from your smartphone. You can go walk down, I don't know where the nearest John Lewis is, but you can buy it in John Lewis right now. Right? From anywhere on the planet, I can control those light bulbs, 16 million colors. The light bulb has the intelligence in it to do the timer, to do the colors, to do the brightness in each individual light bulb in my home. Right? I can buy that right now through a retail store in this country. It's quite an expensive light bulb. It costs you about £72. It is, however, guaranteed to last 25 years. So, £3 or £4 a year. It's a little bit more than we pay for light bulbs today, but it's not an outrageous amount of money. Everything in your world is going to create data. In your business environment, whichever business you're in, you will be challenged to look after the amount of data that you have. We will not be able to cope with it by simply doing what we're doing. Now, I love this slide. The words are really good, but I really like it because of the picture of the man's face. Because that, I think, is how it feels to be an IT professional today. Right? Everybody wants IT to go faster. IT is no longer an adjunct to the business. IT is the business. And increasingly, we are the people who are being looked upon to provide the innovation, to provide the leadership, not the follow on and add a bit to it, not can you just do what you used to do and do it a bit cheaper. No. Today, we are being required to be the innovation engine, to do it faster, to do it cheaper, of course, but to do it simpler, to integrate with other things, to find new business opportunities that are only possible through the use of information technology. That's the challenge we're wrestling with today. So if we're going to do that, our view at HP is very much that we need a new style of IT. Simply doing it the way we've always done it for the last 30 or 40 years just won't get us where we need to be. Simply relying on Moore's law so we can process twice as fast every year or two, we can store more data every year or two, we can transmit it a bit quicker, just isn't good enough. We have to find different ways to look at it. Now, I'll talk about how we're going to build some of this stuff in a few minutes, but we also have to look at how we consume it very differently. We won't do client-server anymore, we won't do transactional systems, rather we will, but it'll be augmented by new things. They'll be still there, but we have to do it differently to cope with the new things. We have to deal with cloud, we have to deal with mobility, we have to deal with the already cynical phrase big data and what does that actually mean for our business. Those things make us think differently about technology. The big data, I say, is already a cliche, but it does change everything. Everything will be changed by this. Every organization I talk to, and I spend about half my business life talking to organizations and customers about the challenges they face and how we can help them. The scale at which businesses are creating and collecting data today is way outstripping their ability to do something sensible with it. That's the problem with big data. You've probably heard the phrase dark data. Almost every customer I talk to has stuff that they store that they never look at again. They just collect it because they think they have to, and depending on your regulatory environment, a government may be telling you you have to, but they then never look at it again. It just sits there. There's value in it, potentially huge amounts of value, but they never get to it. There are traditional databases that are out there. There will be vastly new ones. The Internet of Things is, again, the phrase that everybody uses. More and more digital data will be coming at your business. And your challenge will then be how you look at it and how do you analyze it. And analytics are the key. It doesn't matter if you've stored it, but you can't analyze it, it's of virtually no value to you. So we see more and more people, the infrastructure just doesn't scale to be big enough, at least not at a cost point that makes any sense to us. Analytics typically are today available only to the few because they're expensive. That radically has to change. We've got to get the speed versus depth of insight piece right. And it's an interesting question that I typically ask a lot of customers is, where is your valuable data? Do you know? Is it in your traditional systems of record, all those relational databases? Maybe. Some value in that. Is it in digital stuff you've collected, the dark data you never touch? Is it on the outside that your customers have that you never touch? Do you know where your valuable data is? Most organizations don't. The clever, the brave ones admit they don't and are trying to find out, and we look at solutions to enable to pull that together. There are real solutions today. Our technology is a thing called Haven, which is a way of pulling together over 500 different information sources, not just databases or systems of record, but photographs, video, email, the ability to talk to social media sites and automatically analyze what's going on in the world without having to become an expert in every single one of those. That sort of abstraction style analytics is what will change the way that you think about how your data is and where the value is inside your company. Cloud is another one that we talk about. My colleagues were just in a session next door. If any of you are in there, cloud's been hyped for some time. It is real today. And all those vendors out there that have been telling you for several years the cloud is this shape or that shape, it's private, it's public. The reality is it's mixed up. It's a hybrid. Every commercial organization will have some cloud-based solutions inside their business. You will access some on the outside. The challenge is in pulling it together and making it coherent and whole. That's the win in the cloud space. That's what cloud solutions do. It's what hybrid does. So partners of HP like Zingstra, who are downstairs, can show you examples of how you pull this together without having to be an IT guru to understand every little nuance, so you can do it quickly, easily, cost-effectively, and get the value of it. I also see a lot of organizations today looking at mobile. Now this is fascinating. If you look around that show floor down there, I was just having a look over the banister before we started, the number of people that are talking about wireless-based solutions. How many people here know when the iPad was launched? How old is the iPad? Any ideas? Any ideas? Go on.
2004 years.
4 years old. Thank you very much. That's the right answer. 2010 was when it was actually launched. Up until that point, networks in buildings were wired. You walked up with your Cat5 cable and you plugged an Ethernet socket into something, and you might have had some wireless stuff as backup or guest access somewhere. Today, it's completely the other way around. In less than 40 months, we have completely changed our attitude to connectivity. Right? Today, nobody I know is wiring a building, a new building anyway, for anything other than wireless. There's no wired in it, it's wireless-based access. It's shared, it's secure, it's scalable, and it's completely changed the way we think about how connectivity works. Enables us to actually get far faster applications. And I look at people who are building applications. If you haven't yet made the shift to mobile first and static if I have to, you will. In the past, you used to build applications for a static desktop, some sort of environment, laptop type environment, and you might have built a mobile version of it later. No longer. Today, it's mobile first, and you do static if you have to, because that's the way your customers want to work. That's the demands we see, and if you do it well, you can save money. It's cheaper. But you have to think about this from a couple of different ways. Most people think about mobility as in how zoomy is my interface in front of the customer? How good is my UX that the customer is going to see? And that's valid in that we've all had bad experiences of trying to deal through a bad user interface. That just gets frustrating very quickly. We're all dealing with the bring your own device. Even if you don't have a policy that says it's allowed, your people are doing it anyway, so you might as well embrace it because it's happening to you. One of the pleasures of my job is I'm involved in the graduate recruitment into HP, and I pick out a day in early September, which is the day they all show up for work, all these 22, 23-year-old fresh-faced kids who turn up for work at HP. It's a great day. And up until recently, when we handed them, there's your HP laptop, here's your HP phone, it was excellent toys to play with. Last 3 years, no. Last 3 years it's been, do I have to, really? I've already got a much cooler phone than this thing you're going to give me. I've already got a decent laptop. Why are we going to carry two? Can't you just make your systems work with my device, whatever that device is? And that's where we are today. But you've also got to think beyond that. It's not just about the device and the app you run on it, it's the connectivity. Can you build a network to allow you to get the volume of data you need from all of those different devices? Can you actually make it secure with the applications not only that your organization wants to use, but that your individuals want to use? Because they're going to bring them in with them on their handset, their phone, their tablet, whatever the variant they like is. They're going to bring that with them. And they're also going to demand an infrastructure which is going to be very different from the one we do today. And we at HP are, I think, leading the world in terms of our thinking about how you build new generations of infrastructure. If you put it together, I can break it into 5 bits for you. Okay, these are the things I would encourage you to look at. Today's infrastructure will change into this. If we look at memory for a start, talk to most organizations, the stuff you store is in lots of different places. Some of it's in memory, it's expensive and it's transitory. Some of it's in flash, some of it's in high-speed disk, low-speed disk. Most of you have probably still got tape somewhere, even if you don't admit it, but okay. Or disk-to-disk backup perhaps, yeah. Virtual tape libraries, very common, that sort of thing. Most organizations have, pick a number, but it's 7 to 9 layers of stuff. And most of your operating system that you deploy moves stuff around between those layers. That is going to change. We're about to move to universal flat memory, non-volatile memory. Think about the memory you've got in your laptop or your phone or your server, but it's petabytes big, and it's still there when you turn the power off. That's what we mean by non-volatile. That will radically change how you access, store, use, manipulate, analyze, transmit data in the next 2 years. Technology is being developed. There are 3 different spins on that, but that will change radically how everything from a device to a server to a data center is built. Compute will change. Most of us, looking around this room, I'm easily the oldest person here, but we've all kind of been in the world which is x86 server shaped. You may buy it from different vendors, you may occasionally have an AMD one in there, but it's kind of Intel x86 shaped. It won't be in the future. What you'll see is far more use of a much wider range of processors, specific to a task. Systems on a chip, things that came out of those mobile phones that I'd probably lay money everybody in this room has at least one of with them today. That's that style of technology. You will see a much greater variety of processing types, much more specific for your application, for your users, dramatically more power efficient, because if we don't change the way we use electricity, we will run out. This country in particular, within Europe, has a major problem. Right now we are predicting to run out of electricity, Didcot power station fires notwithstanding, that makes it worse, before 2020. If we just keep doing what we're doing, we will run out. There are already significant parts of this country where you cannot build a new data center. Not because you can't get planning permission, not because you can't buy the land, because you cannot buy the electricity. We have to do it differently. HP is leading the way in doing dramatically different things with that technology. We also plug things together in a very different way. That's a real data center. It's not one of ours. Over a beer, I'll tell you who actually built that and thought it was fit for purpose. But our problem right now is copper. Copper is the enemy because it's expensive, it's hot, and it's slow. Fundamentally, electrons don't go fast enough to actually allow us to do what we need to do. What you'll see over the next few years is we'll move entirely to photonics. We'll do it with light. Now, we've done that for long distance for a long time. Storage arrays have been fiber channel for years, but now think of that inside a rack, inside a server, inside the integrated technology itself. Light is cold, fast, and cheap. So we'll move very quickly to that, pulling those things together. Your software environment will change. Many customers I've already talked to, and I've picked on one here, probably unfairly, but pick your big enterprise license vendor of choice. People aren't going to buy software like that anymore. What you will have is much more software, dramatically more of it open source, and the ability to integrate that together, and having partners like HP who will harden that for your enterprise will define how your application looks like. You won't have 5 or 6 core applications, you'll have hundreds, and you will need to find a way to pull that together. It also changed the way that you actually look at the data itself. We've gone from a fixation on devices. Right? Can I have the latest iPhone or Samsung phone, please? Can I buy a new tablet? When's my laptop due for renewal? Those days are over. What we're really going to focus on is not the device, but the data that lives on the device. Because the people will probably bring the device with them. Whether you like it or not, they're probably going to bring their own phone in with them, their own laptop, their own tablet, and demand that it connects to the network. You've then got to work out who owns the data. I don't know how many of you here do business internationally, but that's a very difficult question to answer in Europe. In the UK, it's legally unclear. It's the company's data, but it's my device. And I'm not on company premises, so who owns the data? It's not actually legally very clear. In Germany, it's very clear. The owner of the device owns the data. Not the company, the owner of the device. Right, so if it's my phone, my tablet, and I've got all my company data on it, and I walk out the door, it's mine. Okay? How are you going to cope with that? You have to think differently about how you pull things together, and partnerships to help you do that will be critically important. HP is designing a new generation of technology, we call it the machine, that pulls all of these threads together. Using systems on a chip for processing, non-volatile memory, photonics, and a very different software architecture, compatible, of course. But now we can start to do very, very different things. One of the most powerful computers we use in the world today is a thing called the Blue Gene Q. It's an IBM thing at Livermore University in the United States. It's famous for being able to do, it was the predecessor to IBM's Watson thing that plays the Jeopardy games, if you've ever watched any of those stuff on YouTube. That thing takes about 120 cabinets. It takes 8 megawatts of electricity to run, and it does about 1 million complicated things a second. Using the machine, we'll do something that will take 8 cabinets, not 120. It will take 400 kilowatts, not 8 megawatts, and will go 8 times faster at 1/10 of the price. That's the sort of change you will see in our industry as we go through the next 3 to 4 years. A radically different infrastructure, building what we have today, of course. It's not about future promises, it's about building from where we are today, and HP and its partners that are downstairs happy to come and talk to you about that. But I'd leave you with one thought. This is actually a very old quote from one of the people who founded HP, David Packard, and he phrased it in that way. I look at it the other way. There is no standstill option. If you think you can sit back and wait while this stuff matures, I hear a lot of customers talk about that, if you're going to wait to see who's going to win, the waters will wash over you. You've got to stay ahead of the game. You've got to stay involved and engaged with the leading vendors and their partners that are out there, because that's how you'll learn what's going to win and what will not. And HP very much is positioning itself as to be one of those leading partners in the industry, not just a supplier, that's commonplace, but a partner who shares and can work with you in our wider partner channel to help your organization and you as individuals be successful in this really exciting and challenging times that we have. With that, I'm just about out of time, so I'll pull it to an end. I'll be around at the end for any questions there, but thank you very much for your time.